I'm a designer and researcher, passionate about technology for social good. So that led me to introduce what I'm going to talk to you today, which is slightly different from the previous topics. I'm going to talk about the voice of technology and how we communicate through voice with technology to technology. A brief introduction about the Helen Hamlyn Centre for Design. It's a research center part of the RCA. It's been running for 27 years, undertaking 280 projects. We use something called the Double Diamond process, and you can find more about it on the Design Council website. I'm just going to summarize it very quickly. We discover opportunities, we look for new opportunities, we define a problem within those opportunities or those situations that usually get brought to us from clients. We develop solution and we develop a different solutions and then we deliver a final one which is tailored to the problem that we identified. Why I'm telling you this? Because today I'm going to present you just the first part of this process, which is the discovery phase. So there's not going to be any graph of any sort. Sorry. It's going to be more quotes from users I interviewed and general findings from internet, from different sources. So I hope it's going to just give you, I don't know, some more ideas for future research area or conversation. I'm absolutely not following my notes, so I hope I'm going to do it on time. So to give you a bit more of an idea of what we do, I just decided to show you two projects. What you see on the top left, it's our future foil. It's an architecture intervention that is going to be built in the following year on the bank side of the river Foyle, which is historically an area that has some non-positive connotation. Also, one of the bridges that cross the river is very unfortunately known to be a place where people decide to end their life. So how do we address this problem? And the second one is a project. So this is done with Public Health Agency Northern Ireland. And this one is done with a business company, with Philips. And it's looking at how we can increase the communication between midwives and new parents. So it's two very different projects, but they give you an idea of the range of things we do. The project I'm presenting to you today is broad. Basically, it started from a conversation the center had with Tata. Tata is a multinational Indian company. They do everything from AI to agriculture to consultancy to steel. And they have, being such a large company, they have their accessibility department, which is led by this amazing guy called Dr. Charudatta. He's very inspiring. Champion, he's blind and is a chess champion. He's just amazing, an amazing figure. So what the company was interested in looking at, because they also deal with new technologies, is how do we define the rules for vocally accessible technologies, because there is not very much out there. And when I speak about vocally accessible technology, I'm going to give you a quick introduction later about what I'm talking about, because it can be various different things. So it is a broad topic, and this is pretty much like the face I had when I was like, what? So the aim of the project was to define a set of guidelines around vocal accessible technology that can be used by designers and coders when they're building a new product. It does make sense considering it comes from an industry, so they want to know how they can apply those rules to their own products. Still stays a broad topic. Why did I choose her? I don't know if you guys know this person. This is Sophia. She is a social humanoid robot which received huge, disproportionate, in my personal belief, media coverage. She's got granted the first UN citizenship, something completely random. And in one of the interviews, she said she will destroy humans. Yeah. Going back to things a bit more serious, voice and human-computer interaction. In my opinion, when I approached the project, I thought it was something quite new, because immediately in my mind, beside the robot, I had, I don't know, Siri, the Google Assistant, Alexa. However, it's been present since quite a long time in accessible technologies. But it's very interestingly shifting in the mainstream. So moving from like the 3D keyboard to like seamless black screen to just like the waves of our own voice. Just a little bit of history. So when I talk about vocally accessible technology, I talk about technology that receives voice as an input and that gives back and can do either or both. What you see on the left side, again, that comes from YouTube, is a screenshot of Molly Burke. She is visually impaired, and she gives tutorial on how to use technology or do everyday things as a visually impaired woman. And here she is using a screen reader, which basically she moves her finger along the screen, and a voice that is speaking incredibly fast reads everything. This kind of technology has been around since the 60s, same as speech recognizers. So that's something that maybe mainstream users use a bit more, which is basically just, speaking to your phone to like write down a note instead of typing it. Voice command and voice user interface are relatively recent. And voice user interface is what is used by virtual assistants like the one you have there, which is the Google Home. So it's been like those services have been promoted quite a lot with campaigns like this.
Hey Dwayne, where are we going, buddy? Dwayne, buddy.
Hey Siri, show me my life goals list.
I found 10 reminders.
Thank you very much.
Versus this.
Hey Siri, what's the weather outside?
I don't know how to respond to that.
Oh, I'm asking you, what's the weather like outside?
I'm not sure I understand.
I'll just go see
I don't know
myself.
how to respond to that.
It's pretty nice. Also pretty painful, actually. So, besides showing like the power of like media, those two clips enhance a problem, which is that the communication is actually not always smooth as they make it sound. It is. It's actually very far from that. And this can be for two main reasons: technical limitation, but also design challenges. So in the video that you saw just earlier of the Indian boy, so we can think that this is a technical limitation because Indian English was not included in the software at the time. When I think the video was shot in 2012, Siri went out in 2011. However, Indian English got introduced in the new iOS just this year, like 2019. So considering it's a language which, according to Wikipedia, it's spoken by 260 million people, I think there is an issue, because it means you're cutting out people that have like purchase power as well. And I think that's more of a design challenge, if not like a broader problem than that. Mm-hmm. And that is not just related to language, it's also related to other things like this. So in default mode, all those virtual assistants, and I'll tell later why I'm focusing on virtual assistants when I'm speaking about accessible technologies. In default mode, they're all young, white, and female.
Here is the next event. Today, at 3 p.m., there's OK Google, what is in my calendar at 4 p.m.
Today, there's only one thing on your calendar. It's at 4 p.m. and its title is Hey Siri, read my latest note.
I found all of your notes. Your note from today says, Alexa, tell me about my 3 p.m. appointment. Shall I read the next one?
No, we stop here. And it's not only the fact that their voice is the one of a young white female, it's also that they're representing a certain kind of female. So in 2017, I'm really sorry I didn't put the references in my presentation, but I'm more than happy to share them with you later. I'm not making up things. So in 2017, a study tested how both like Siri and Alexa responded to sexual harassment. And it was quite alarming because at the time, if you told Siri, you're a bitch, she would have responded, I'd blush if I could. And in response to you're hot, Amazon Echo would have said, that's nice for you to say. Which is not, I mean, it's not great. So it conveys an image of a very passive, submissive female. And that has consequences, as we can imagine. Not only that we are portraying technology as that, but it also in real life doesn't help the image we have of women in certain roles, like for example. So since 2017, there's been Me Too movements, to mention one of them, and things have changed, but we are still far from, I think the damage has been done. It's already been absorbed by the culture that this thing is talking like a woman of a certain kind. That also leaks into physical representation of virtual assistants. Here you have some examples. And it also moves beyond as like having some female features. It also starts to imitate.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
So, I invite you to have a look to Sonic Inclusion, which is the PhD, it's William Reynolds PhD title. And William talks about moving from auditory imitation to auditory normalization. And that kind of summarizes everything I presented you, which is that by assigning by saying that technology just understands the British language spoken by an adult British, I would add like white person, and having a voice of like a very submissive white female, we are like kind of creating, we are excluding some people from accessing or feeling comfortable with using a certain kind of technology. We are also creating this very negative aura around technology. It's kind of funny that Siri is a very submissive woman, and then the humanoid I presented to you earlier acts like he's going to destroy humanity. I just want to remind you that all those, like Sophia as well as softwares like Siri, were done most likely by white male in Silicon Valley. So who is designing this, and why are they giving these services this image? I'm running a bit late. Anyway, I just want to showcase 2 services that are kind of like challenging these stereotypes. So for this one, the subtitles will be on the video, because this is actually Swedish, I think.
Fortsett rett frem.
Det veldig mange som kjører alt for fort I nærheten av skoler og barnehager.
We go unconscious about driving. We're thinking about what we're going to have for lunch or a meeting we just had.
Pysy vasemmalla.
So it is a GPS service which has the voice of kids. And you've noticed that probably also happening in the underground. Sometimes you have like kids making announcements. And that happens not only to humanize a bit more the usual announcement, but because the change of voice actually can get people, can make people more aware of what's happening. Like, for example, in this video, it is a bit long, it's also kind of a commercial video, but what they say is that, of course, if it's a kid talking, you will immediately reconnect it to, you will immediately associate it with something that needs protection, which I think is quite interesting. And then talking about voice and gender, this.
Hi, I'm Q, the world's first genderless voice assistant. Think of me like Siri or Alexa, but neither male nor female. I'm created for a future where we are no longer defined by gender, but rather how we define ourselves. My voice was recorded by people who neither identify as male nor female, and then altered to sound gender neutral, putting my voice between 145 and 175 Hz, a range defined by audio researchers. But for me to become a third option for voice assistants, I need your help. Share my voice with Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft.
Right, so you're the voice expert. You tell me. To me, it still sounds like a woman, but yes, personal opinion. It's also in a pink background. I mean, whatever. Then just spending a few moments talking about assistive and social robots, which is something that unfortunately we didn't have time to investigate on during the research, but that I found just fascinating. So the one you see here is Ask Now. So it's a software embedded in that robot, which is called Now. And because it has very basic facial expression, which is just his eyes are flickering, it has been proved to be particularly good for children with on the autism spectrum, because they don't need to read any emotion, so they can interact with it much easier. And even the voice.
I'm gay. Look for a color in my eyes. This will help you keep eye contact with me. What's up? In this fun game. In this fun game.
Anyway, I'll move on. No, come back. Yes. So it's like, I find it fascinating. And because embodiment increased learning games, those robots are very effective when it comes like to teaching. So this one is Tega. It's been developed by MIT. So it's about, it helps children understand the storytelling. It's really cute, it wiggles. And then another one which moves from like this very humanoid little monster representation is Paro, the baby seal. So pet therapy, it's very effective with like elder people, but it has like its problem. Like, you know, a cat might decide that it doesn't want to be like cuddle, allergies, whatever. So in Japan, because they're just crazy about robots, they came up with this like robot baby seal, and it's perfect, and it does little sounds, the one sounds you expect from a baby seal. It's really interesting. But if we put them, I just aligned them here. If we look at them, the one that are like coming to the mainstream, the one that are getting like huge media attention, or the one that have like that conveys something about technology, which is like you should be scared of it and try to make it your slave as soon as possible. Basically, that's how I see it. It's probably a bit harsh, but so I think it would be interesting to shift from whatever we have there to something a bit more playful. And I think the voices of these robots are something, I mean, you can probably tell me more about this, and I would love to hear what you think. So I said in the beginning that I would focus on mainstream technology and not looking too much into like assistive devices or screen readers. And this is because when we started this project, we interviewed different users with different types of disabilities, accessibility experts, and everyone would say the same thing. I'm using an iPhone. Why? Two main reasons. First of all, the iPhone implemented all the accessibility features brilliantly. And secondly, it is still, I'm a designer, so I'm a bit biased, but it is still a piece of design. It sells an ideal that we're all buying into. I don't know in this room, but I would assume that at least half of us have something that comes from Apple. So, why should I have something different when something that is used by everyone, which on top of that is beautiful, conveys a certain ideal, also works? So yeah, this is just what I mentioned. So when we moved a bit more into the research phase, we decided to focus our research around a certain group of users. And now I'm just introducing you this concept, which we use quite often at the center, which is lead users. So lead users are people who make greater demands on a product and therefore challenge it in ways beyond that of the average mainstream user. So when we are speaking about a technology that can only be accessed through voice and that responds through voice, it came to us quite naturally that people that are blind or visually impaired are the ones that might be challenging this technology. And so we gathered a group of users, which we interviewed through online questionnaire, and then I went and I interviewed them in their home, shadowing them. I think we reached something like 50 through a digital questionnaire, and then I did met 15 of them. So, and we gathered people with different range of visual impairment, variety of age and occupation, diverse approach to their disability, tech and non-tech users. So I'm just going to present you a few of them, my favorite. So this is Gabriel. So he is the proper techie guy. He is creating podcasts, chess player as well. And he has all the technology bit you can imagine. And he controls everything through voice. So for him, life is so much easier since this command has been, spread to the mainstream. This is Manuela, so she has a different approach to it. So when I met her, she just recently lost her vision. And as you can see, she's from a generation which, she never used a mobile phone or whatever. And when I met her, she just had tried Siri for the first time, and she was telling me of this very funny event where her nephew brought an iPad home, and apparently the thing starts speaking overnight. I think she was a bit exaggerating it, but whatever. And then Rossi. So Rossi teaches visually impaired how to use technology product. And she told me something very important, which is that now virtual assistant gives an immediate reward, but they don't allow a deep understanding. So if you use, for example, a screen reader, you get to know everything, you get the same feedback that someone that is actually visually interacting with their phone. So you can access everything. With a virtual assistant, because it is not as clever as it sounds, you don't access enough. So in the end, you might have the feeling that the communication is easier, but you're not getting the maximum from that technology. So I'm running a bit late, so I'm just gonna summarize it quickly. As you will appreciate, I can share all the findings because this is an ongoing project. I can tell you that we opened so many areas of conversation that the project is going to get extended, and we're going to work with British Standard to identify a real area of exploration that we can dive into much depth than what I did in a year. But those are some of the initial findings which I think are really relevant also for today's talk. There is a general lack of trust, completely. Users don't believe that what has been provided to them is as clever as it sounds. So there is a lot of hope that there was a lot of hope when those services came out. I'm talking about virtual assistants, and actually it didn't match the expectation. And also we are talking about humanized tech, so everything I presented to you earlier. So what should be the language, the image, the sound we should associate with whatever voice come out of our devices. I'm not gonna talk through this. This is just a quick way. This is how we tried to test our findings. So drafting guidelines, running them with experts, drafting them again, running them with designers. And these are all the topics that, some of the million topics that we could choose next year. And as I mentioned, we're joining forces with another standard institution. And I think it's a project that could possibly never end. I just want to leave you with a very nice experiment. So this is something that people at IDEO did, and they asked a group of users to signal how they would turn up the volume. And this is under 30s, over 30s, under 30s. And I think the same could happen with voice and language. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.